I was never the kind of woman who believed in fairy tales. No dreams of castles or charming princes. All I ever wanted was something simple. A peaceful life. A partner I could trust. A home that felt warm and honest. When I met Daniel, I thought I'd found exactly that. He wasn't flashy or poetic, but he was calm, grounded, and he made me laugh in the quietest, most genuine ways. We met in a bookshop of all places. He recommended a novel I ended up hating, but the conversation it sparked stayed with me longer than the story ever could. 2 years later, we were married. A small ceremony, nothing extravagant, just our closest friends and family. I didn't want perfection, stability, something real. And for a while, I believed I had it. We settled into a modest home in the suburbs. I started working part-time at a community center while he commuted to the city for his corporate job. Long hours, yes, but he always came home, or so I believed. The shift was slow, subtle, a change in the way he answered me, the delayed responses, the way his stories got shorter or disappeared altogether. He used to tell me everything, from annoying coworkers to what coffee he tried that day. And then, silence. He became distracted, tired, distant. I told myself it was stress, that he was burnt out, that I wasn't going to be that wife, the one who turns every late night into an accusation. I waited. I gave him space. I even surprised him at work once with lunch, but he wasn't there. The receptionist said he'd taken a half day. That night, he told me he had an emergency meeting off-site. I wanted to believe him. Then came the receipt, tucked in the pocket of his jacket. A high-end restaurant. It's the same one I had once mentioned wanting to try. He'd said it was too expensive. The date matched the night of that so-called emergency meeting. I didn't say anything. I folded the receipt, placed it in my journal, and started paying closer attention. I didn't snoop. I simply watched. It's the way he smiled at his phone, the sudden hums after his showers, the cologne he never used before. The man I knew was unraveling in front of me, thread by thread. I had loved him with quiet devotion. I thought I knew him. But love doesn't always protect you. Sometimes it blinds you. Then came the moment everything turned. Left his laptop open one evening, heading out for another client dinner. Kissed his cheek, told him to enjoy, and then I sat at the kitchen table. His laptop was still on. No password. No effort to hide. There it all was. Messages, emails, calendar events, dinner reservations, photos, memes, jokes, selfies from hotel lobbies. Her name was Melissa. She worked at a nearby firm. Young, blonde. She called him D. It wasn't explicit, but it didn't need to be. It was enough. I didn't cry, I didn't scream. I made a cup of tea and sat in silence. That's when I realized it wasn't grief I was feeling. It was clarity, cold and sharp. Over the next few days, I became someone else. I smiled. I laughed. I asked about his day, kissed him goodbye and cooked his favorite meals. Even suggested a little weekend getaway, something just for us. He hesitated, said he might have work obligations. I nodded, understanding. He didn't know I had already spoken to a lawyer. Not for divorce, not yet. I just wanted information. Options, and quietly. I was gathering them all. Then I reached out to my friend Clairo, worked in HR at a neighboring company. She was discreet, smart, and OADM. A favor she didn't disappoint within a week. I had more details about Melissa than Daniel, probably. Knew her job title, her work schedule, her social media profiles, even the address of the condosh rented it turned out. Daniel had been footing part of the bill. I had to choices confront him and break things apart or wait and let the pieces fall where I wanted them to. I chose Thelator. Quiet revenge is an art and I was about to become an artist. I took a job, Ariel. One not part-time, I found a position at a legal firm entry level. Boots solid. I didn't tell Daniel right away, used the time while he was working, Letetto attend training. When I finally told him, he seemed surprised, even a bit annoyed. But he smiled and said he was proud of me. That was the moment I knew he had no idea what I was doing. He still believed. I was the same woman he'd grown comfortable betraying. I started Savingmani. Every paycheck went into a separate account he didn't know existed. He canceled our joint credit card and Sadie's bank made a mistake. He didn't follow up. I sold some jewelry he'd given me, Onis I never liked, and told him I'd misplaced them. He barely noticed I'd begun documenting everything. Texts, emails, receipts, photos. I became meticulous. Kalman calculated the only person I told was my sister. She wanted me to leave him immediately. She called him names I didn't even think she knew, but I told her to trust me. I needed to do this my way, and she did. She offered me her guest room if I ever needed it. She even helped move a few boxes out of the house one day when Daniel was away at a conference. So he said the hardest part wasn't pretending. It was realizing how easy it was for him to live a double life. How smoothly he transitioned between affection and betrayal. But I refused to let that break me. I wasn't going to scream or beg. I wasn't going to cry in front of him or tear up the house. I was going to smile until the very end, Anthony. Disappear on my own terms, and so I waited. I watched, I planned, and the day I was ready, I made sure he was completely unaware of what was coming. I had very thing. I needed proof, leverage your sources, but it wasn't just walking away, was going to leave him with something. Never forget, this wasn't just a boot revenge. It was about reclaiming Jerry thing, he thought. He had the right to destroy my dignity, my peace, and my trust, and this was only the beginning. Days that followed felt like a game of chess, and every move I made was sentencial denis. Continued his little Cyrano, aware that I was no longer the naive, trusting wife he had underestimated. Still came home late, he still sensed half-hearted work is crazy today texts, and still replied with sweet emojis and warm words, but behind the smile, I was documenting everything, and slowly, I was disassembling the life he thought was safely held in place. Melissa was easy to track. She posted often marathons she should have for Sumi involved in an affair, coffee photos, boutique shopping, and subtle snapshots that didn't show Daniel's face. Beautyways showed his watch or their reflection of his car's interior, cluesmal ones, but I collected them like puzzle pieces. I even created a folder, password protected, where I stored every bit of digital evidence. Some days I found myself staring at their pictures, not out of jealousy but curiosity. What did she think she had won? Daniel began withdrawing more money from her accounts, small amounts at first, then larger ones. He assumed I didn't notice because I rarely touched our finances for, but now I did. I monitored every transaction. I logged in daily. I even spoke to the bank manager and asked them to alert me about any large cash withdrawals. I masked it as just being cautious. Meanwhile, I moved more funds into the hidden account, liquidated old investments in my name, and slowly turned a shared life into one only I controlled. I kept the house spotless, suffrage full, and his laundry folded. I didn't want him to sense anything was off because the trap had to look like comfort. And comfort was the last thing was ever going to feel again. One night, I told him I wanted to throw Asmal anniversary dinner. Nothing big, just a few close friends. Something casual. He looked surprised. You're still up for celebrating? He asked. I smiled, of course. I said, marriage isn't perfect, but I love you. I always have. Helen in and kissed my forehead. Ilmos laughed. The guest list was carefully chosen. A few mutual friends, Miss Sister, and a couple of Daniel's schooligs. Not the ones he partied with, responsible ones, the kind that cared about family values and had spouse would never stand for infidelity, the kind of crowd where Daniel couldn't lee his way out of things. He planned every detail, catered food, fresh flowers, candles. I even ordered a customized cake with our names on it just to make everything look sincere. Daniel arrived just before the guests dressed sharply, carrying a bottle of wine. I greeted him with a kiss and told him how happy I was that he was home. He looked around and smiled. This looks amazing. And then the guests came. The living room filled with laughter, glasses clinking, old memories resurfacing. Miss Sister played hostess with me, but she kept her eyes on Daniel. She knew what was coming. She was ready. After dinner, I stood up to give a little toast. Daniel, holding my hand, looked proud. Or maybe just relieved. He probably lived. I had no clue that I was still as full, I cleared my throat, and Begani, just want to thank everyone for coming. It means a lot to celebrate with people Wove known us for years who've seen her journey. Together, marriage, as we all know, is about love, trust, and honesty. I paused, looking straight into Daniel sighs, and sometimes it's also about discovering who's someone truly. Especially when they think you're not watching the room shifted the laughter. Fadaginel's smile faltered. I continued over the past year. I've learned a lot about patience, about betrayal, of boot strength. And tonight I wanted to share something with you all. I reached under a table and pulled out a folder. My hands didn't shake. I opened it slowly and laid it on the coffee table for everyone to see. Screenshots, receipts, printed of calendar invites, and even photos I didn't need to explain. The evidence spoke for itself. Daniel's face turned pale. He tried toss peek, but I raised a hand. Don't just listen. I turned to the group. This is the man. I married a man who thought he could cheat and walk away without consequences. But what he forgot is that while he was out building a second life, was preparing the end of this. Oni walked to the side table, picked up an envelope, and handed it to him. This, as from my lawyer, you'll find all the documents inside: divorce papers, financial breakdowns, and a full summary of what's coming. I've taken care. Everything looked stunned, speechless. The guests were frozen. My sister took a sip of her wine and smirked, and Daniel Ayadidal, be hearing from Melissa's lawyer too. I may have shared a few tales about her relationship with a married client, apparently fraternizing like that isn't great for their brand image. He tried to protest. This is insanino. I replied calmly, this is justice. After the guests left, I sat alone in the living room. Daniel had stormed out, his voice echoing down the street as hard with someone on the phone. Maybe Melissa, maybe his lawyer. It didn't matter. I had finally ended. But revenge wasn't in the dinner or the public humiliation. It was in the control. I had taken back the clarity I had drained and the calm with which I executed every step. He didn't deserve my rage. He didn't earn my tears. He earned negligence. He earned solitude. Next day I left the house for good. I had already signed a lease for a new apartment in a quieter part of the Setia. Place with no memories, no shadows. It took only what was mine, and nothing more could keep the house. The walls already rire of lies in my new space. I unpacked slowly. I hung fresh curtains, watered a small plant by the window, and lit a candle that smelled of lavender and something I couldn't name. Peas made. Melissa messaged me a few days later. She said she was sorry that I didn't know that. She felt terrible. I didn't respond. What would be the point? She wasn't my enemy. She was just an other person who believed his lies. Daniel tried calling me, of course, left voicemails full of regret, confusion, Evana, little desperation. I didn't listen to most of them. The last one I heard ended with him saying, I didn't think you had this in you. That one made me smile. He was right. I hadn't known I had this in him either, but betrayal has a way of canning parts of you that were aloesquit parts that know how to protect, how to plan, how to rise. And I wasn't done yet. After the divorce papers were signed and Daniel's messages stopped coming, I didn't feel victorious. I felt free. And sometimes freedom is the best revenger. Is the apartment I'd moved into was still quiet, still new, but slowly it started to feel like home. I filled the shelves with books I loved, not ones we pretended to read together. I bought a small plant that I made sure not to played music in the mornings and left windows open, letting in the air of a life that was finally mine. Daniel lost his job not long after. The truth came out. Word had spread fast, especially after Melissa's departure raised questions. A few colleagues came forward with stories, subtle but consistent. Fate painted a picture of a man who wasn't just unfaithful in marriage, but in professionalism. His charm couldn't save him this time, and I didn't need to lift another finger. That's the thing about truth. It travels quietly, but it always. I saw Melissa once after everything ended at a grocery store. She looked away quickly, ashamed I didn't stop. Her, I didn't glare or speak. I just walked past her, not out of forgiveness bet, 'cause she no longer matter redney. Did he? I started something new, a legal support group for women, going through betrayal, divorce, and manipulation, not as a therapist or expert. Just someone who'd lived it and survived. I sat with them, heard their stories, shared some of them, mind watching them find their voice. Helped me find mine again. Tonight, I stood by my window with a cup of tea, staring at the calm street below a car. Drove by slowly for a second. I thought it might be Daniel, but it wasn't. It didn't matter anyway. Heaver showed up again. He'd find a stranger where his wife used to be. The pawn had passed. The anger had. Quiet remained with something far stronger clarity. Peace, power, Daniel will live with what he did for the rest of his life. But me, I will live unbothered unched and unbroken best. I didn't just walk away. I walked forward and I'm never looking back. Thanks for watching. Bye.